All right. Really appreciate everybody hopping on to the webinar here, the Quest for Top Talent, How to Build Your Marketing A-Team. And one of the reasons why this topic is such an interesting one, especially now, is the landscape of marketing and how marketing has changed just in the last, call it, 5, 10, obviously 20 years. Really marketing has changed. The landscape of marketing has changed because our buyers have changed and how buyers consume, how buyers access and get information, and really how they make decisions. There's more data now than has ever been available before, and everybody can access that data at the tip of their fingertips, on their phone, on their computers. I mean, most people use their phone. But, that's really one of the ways that allows consumers to really make educated decisions. And it's our job as marketers to really have that information and provide the information to our buyers in order for them to make an educated decision. And again, that entire process in a digital landscape is different. So really the way we go about marketing has to be different, which means the people that we have in those positions need to be different as well. So just a couple of things that we're going to be going through today. A little bit of background about me, and these are just some pictures, for reference. The one question I always get: no, I don't have 5 baby foxes. Consider your tab on your browser. I'm the guy that always has, 10, 12, 15 tabs open and stuff like that. So, a little bit of background about me. Like I said, I didn't grow up in sales, I didn't grow up in recruiting. I actually grew up in sales and marketing. That's my background. Really started, leveraging marketing technology very early in my career. And one of the things that I feel really helps me differentiate myself in this space is really allowing me to talk the language of what sales and marketing is trying to accomplish. Okay. And so I think really when talking with hiring managers, that the empathy to, hey, I've done this, I've hired these positions before, really helps me better understand what hiring managers are looking for. And about the company, Verseek, we're one of the largest privately held search firms in the Midwest. Approximately 52 employees, 8 different practice areas, done over 3,000 placements. I mean, the company itself has been around a long time. We have a proven track record. And me personally, built a recruiting practice from scratch when it comes to demand generation, digital marketing, and technology. We work with a lot of clients in San Francisco, New York, are kind of the 2 main hubs, but then also, the tri-state, New Jersey, Connecticut, Los Angeles, obviously here locally in Minneapolis, as well as some of the other tech hubs across the country. A lot of venture capitalists and private equity backed companies, A, B, and C, some Fortune 500 companies. But I think what most people look at is the 2 different types of opportunities that we look at is, one, the build from scratch, right? That's the startup. And then 2, it's the digital transformation. Hey, we're a 30, 40, 50-year-old company. We need to really change the way that we interact, with our customers to become more informed and more efficient in our entire sales and marketing process. And so there also is a question bar. I'm sure many of you are all familiar with webinars. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. If you do have any questions as we go along, there is a lot of information in this. I try to kind of cram as much as I can into 30 minutes. So if you do have any questions along the way, feel free to chime in. At the same time, my information will be at the end that you can feel free to ping me kind of offline. So what we're going to cover, survey results. One of the things that we did recently, just a couple months ago, is we put together a survey that we boosted out to marketers, director and VP level marketers nationally, and really wanted to make sure that we're trying to better understand what struggles companies are having in hiring. Okay, so we're going to go through that. We're going to identify how to identify top talent, building a marketing team, some tips to avoid a bad hire, and then just a couple of key takeaways. So as we go through hiring challenges survey, I kind of prefaced it earlier, 100 marketers nationally. We got a really nice response rate, not an open rate, but this is actually people that did the survey. So a 35% response rate via email. Like I said, primarily director VPC level. We just marketed as, hey, let's take you 60 seconds. Actually took them a little over 2 minutes, but I think that's one of the low barriers of entry that we had. What we asked the survey, really what we wanted to do, like I said earlier, is figure out what is the hardest thing that hiring managers are having when it comes to hiring marketers today. Now, we couldn't just send out a survey with one question in it. Now, there's some other, relevant questions in there for other topics, but as far as for this webinar, we're just going to focus on the one in the red there, which is what is the hardest part of hiring marketing candidates. And so what we did is we had the people that took the survey rank is from 1 being most difficult to 4 being least difficult. What the hardest part was, it's cost of hiring versus budget allocated, meaning I can't afford the people that I'm talking to. Relevant technical experience, meaning I can't find marketing technology, the digital, the demand generation, the marketing automation. I can't find these people. I can't tell if they're good, which is talent evaluation, and then I'm losing candidates to either a counteroffer or competition during the interview process. So I'll take a couple of minutes. The survey online, the webinar survey, wouldn't allow me to have you rank them. So if you just kind of wanted to I'll give you a couple minutes here to do that yourself, and then we'll see how that compares to the results. All right. So if we look at most difficult, number 1 most difficult was relevant experience, which kind of goes back into the I can't find. Okay, so number 1 most difficult thing hiring managers across the country are having is they can't find the relevant experience. Number 2, I can't afford them. So I can't find them, but if I can find them, I can't afford them. Okay, and then it goes into I can't tell if they're good. And then I guess the most difficult thing is nobody really thought losing candidates was the hardest part. But the reason why I bring this up, okay, is because one of the most common questions I get when talking with both hiring managers as well as talent acquisition people is they always ask me, they're like, so, they give me the breakdown of what they're looking for. And they say, well, how much should this person cost? And that's asking really the wrong question, quite frankly. Because for me to try to put a price tag on how much this person should cost, I mean, yes, I should definitely have a really good idea, but the more important question that you should be asking yourself is, how much is this person worth to our organization? Okay, and that's going to go to show. I mean, the cost of these individuals is increasing so much because it's such an in-demand skill set that if you're not willing to, let's say, pay up for somebody, another organization will come along and do that instead. Okay, so again, always ask yourself, put together a business case as to how much this person, is worth to the organization. So number 2, again, number 1 thing, relevant experience. Okay, so for the top 2 most difficult and very difficult relevant experience is number 1 across the board. Talent evaluation comes in at number 2, meaning I can't tell who's good. And then the third thing here is I can't afford them. Okay. So then obviously there's only 4 possibilities here. So looking back on what's the least difficult, losing candidates is obviously number 1. And then obviously when we get into the moderately difficult, it's kind of spread across. But I think when we look at some trends, again, top 2 most difficult, very difficult. Number 1 on both of those is relevant experience. Okay, actually 78% listed relevant experience as the top 2 things. They simply cannot find what they're looking for, and then if they can find them, they cost too much, or they can't tell who's good. And again, I'm not telling you this to kind of rub it in. I just basically it's one of those things where I want you to understand that the struggles that you're having, it's like, oh gosh, I can't find these people. Other companies are having those same struggles. So then you can go back to, and this is really to putting together these business cases to then go back to your, chief marketing officer, VP of marketing, CEO, head of talent acquisition, and saying like, hey, these people are really difficult to find. We need to have additional resources, or we need to do something different, because this is a theme across the country. Okay. So let's say you do, come across and have one of these positions, and you have to identify what top talent looks like. One of the biggest things that I look for in an individual is why they're looking for a new opportunity. Okay. Are they running away? Or are they running towards something? And, sometimes, and don't get me wrong, everybody's been in situations to where they quote unquote miss on a role, right? You get into a position and, your hiring manager leaves 6 months later, or, the culture isn't what you thought it was going to be, or you got an increase in pay, and then the increase in pay, but it's also doubles your commute, and you start doing the commute. It's like, oh gosh, this commute just really isn't sustainable, right? So all of the different reasons, but too often you want somebody that's running towards an opportunity. Okay. Somebody that's saying, hey, this is the next step in my career, because too often if somebody starts running away from different opportunities, well, it might not be the opportunity. It might be them. Okay. Somebody that knows their performance metrics. Again, at the very beginning, we talked about data and understanding data as one of the most important pieces in marketing. So somebody that knows the impact that they've had on an organization, and not just what they've done, that's going to be a really important piece. Job hoppers. I posted a blog about probably 3-4 months ago now on LinkedIn, and it was titled "Why You Should Hire a Job Hopper." And I thought I was going to get, I did get raked over the coals, but I definitely, I think a lot of people were very upset with that, and really the reasoning behind it. And there's more to it. Too often I see people say, oh, somebody had 8 months here, 16 months here, 2 years here, 2 years here. It's like, no, they've hopped around. They've had, 4 jobs, or, 4 jobs in 5 years, or 4 jobs in 6 years. And that's just too much. Well, I mean, look at that and say, have they been always getting a promotion, right? Did they follow a hiring manager? Did they follow their manager around to a couple different opportunities? Okay, did they know somebody at this other organization? I mean, why did they make the moves? Immediately disqualifying somebody just because they have short stints on their resume, you're just doing yourself a disservice, okay? So knowing great companies in the marketplace, when you look at your backyard, whether it be New York, San Francisco, Seattle, Nashville, Tennessee, or Des Moines, Iowa, make sure that you know what successful companies are in your marketplace, because successful companies likely have successful leaders, and successful leaders do really, really well at developing talent inside of those organizations. So if somebody's a manager at a different company and they know that they're not going to be a director because their current director is already there, they might be a prime individual that you can pull out of that company and stick into yours. And then one of the biggest things I think interviewers make the mistake of doing, and that is asking leading questions. And you want to make sure that when you're interviewing somebody, you always ask open-ended questions, right? So a leading question would be, how was your relationship with sales? An answer to that question is, oh, good. We had a great relationship with sales. Yeah, we talked all the time. As opposed to asking somebody an open-ended question, which is, what other departments did you work with? Tell me about how you interacted, and tell me about the relationship there. All of a sudden, they're telling you about, customer service and IT and finance and this, and all of a sudden they're not telling you about sales, right? Oh, well, did you have a relationship with sales? Oh yeah. Well, I mean, somebody works with sales every single day, they're obviously going to tell you that they worked with sales, as opposed to completely leaving it out. So if they leave it out of their answer, that begs to question whether or not, or how much they actually did indeed interact with sales. Okay. And so this goes into one of the questions about measuring impact. And so again, everybody does something, right? So if you look at the top 2 bullet points here, somebody, this is going to be like what's on a resume, right? Created and implemented lead generation and demand generation campaigns. That's what I've done. Okay. When you look at the bottom 2 bullet points, that's the impact. What I've highlighted there in red is that's the impact that it's had on the organization. Okay. Again, very similar stuff. It's not like you're not going to interview, somebody that puts the top 2 bullet points, but somebody that goes the extra mile and understands that impact is going to be a higher quality of a candidate, most likely. Okay. So how to build out your marketing team. One of the things that we do, again, as a recruiter, is I always look at, when I'm talking to an individual and saying, hey, you've only been with your organization for, 6 months, 8 months, 16 months, what happened? And they're like, oh, just I was brought in here to do X, Y, Z. And I put together a business case and I'm trying to do X, Y, Z now, and they're not giving me budget. Or they said that they were going to try to do this, and now it's not moving as quickly as I want it to. Or the culture is not great. I mean, the worst thing that you can do. I mean, yes, you have to get somebody interested in your organization, but as soon as you start overselling, they're going to walk into that role, and whether it be 3, 6, 9 months down the road, they're gonna know right away whether or not it was a good fit for them. So you definitely don't want to oversell. And that ties into having clear performance metrics. If we're having a conversation a year from now, right, what 3 things have I done, or what 3 things has this person done for it to be a successful year, right? Because now everybody wants to have that job satisfaction, and everybody wants to have an impact. So the more clear performance metrics you can have going in day one, it just gets them very excited. Okay. The next 3, provide training, whiteboard, and challenge them. Those all tie in together when it comes to retaining. Okay. When you invest in your employees by providing training and resources, sending them to conferences, getting them out, helping them build up their skill set, they intrinsically feel more, I don't want to, attracted isn't the right word, but they feel more responsible into reciprocating the investment, and they want to do better, and they're going to stay around longer. Okay, how important is it for a company to see as much as you that they spend $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 sending you to a conference? They're making a big investment, or you're making a big investment in the talent, so that talent wants to say like, hey, like they treat me well here, like they get me trained up, they want to continue to challenge me. So doing stuff like that is a really good thing to retain your people. And also the next 2 tying together as well. There is no better way to lose. So you lose your leader, right? You lose your director, or let's say you lose one of your strongest marketers. Okay. A really good way to lose the rest of your team is to, 1, not backfill. Okay. Sarah, you know what? Tim just left, and we need you to pull double duty here for the next 3 months. And oh, by the way, we are not going to recognize you by giving you a bigger title. We're not going to give you any more money. You're just going to be doing the job of 2 people now, and you're going to be making the same amount of money. Okay. Now, if you all of a sudden don't fill that position for 3 months, Sarah's going to be really, really tired of that. And she's going to say like, well, I'm going to, find somebody that appreciates me more. Okay. And then if Sarah does do that, and you clearly articulate to Sarah, hey, Tim left, we need you to pull double duty here for the next, 2-3 months while we get this position backfilled. And oh, by the way, Sarah, if you do a really great job, we'll wait till the end of the year to talk about your raise, but we'll give you a, $5,000 bonus or a $3,000 bonus or whatever it is. I'm just saying some sort of thing to make her feel appreciated, so she wants to stick out the rough parts. The other thing too, and actually the bottom part, I wrote, if you don't think your recruiters are reaching out to your best marketers, and actually crossed out best, and just recruiters are reaching out to everybody, other teams, other companies. I mean, they don't know just based off of a LinkedIn profile or a resume, like who's like good from great. Marketing is in such high demand. Just know that recruiters, talent acquisition people, other companies are reaching out to everybody. So you always got to be making sure that you're doing everything that you can to keep your people. And another thing to do when it comes to building your team is understand skills versus compensation. Okay. Too often I talk to hiring managers and they say, I only have $100,000 budgeted for this person, and I can't spend a penny more than that. And I get it. Budgets are, pretty set in stone. However, what if you come across somebody that could do the role of 2 people on your team and they only cost $110,000 or $115,000? So really know what you can get skill set wise for the level of compensation that might be a little bit of a stretch for what you're looking for, but they can fill multiple roles. And that really ties into the next thing is budget versus specific roles and being flexible. If you're building out your marketing team and you have, $120,000 allocated for this one position and $80,000 for this other position, if you find somebody that's great and you find two people that are great and they're both about 100K, well, if you find one person for 100K, try to find that other person for 100. I mean, just be flexible in making sure that you're just hiring the right people that can fit multiple needs. Promoting from within is huge. Okay. Making sure that you bring in marketers and them knowing that they have a clear career path to move up inside of the organization is really, really valuable for them sticking it out. Okay. Too many times when I can't pull somebody out of an organization, I ask them why, and they say, "Well, I'm thinking I'm going to be getting a promotion here, or my company really does promote." It's a really good way to keep people interested. Knowing what is a need to have versus a nice to have, and higher compensation doesn't translate to better. A lot of times you can get wowed by the shiny object. Oh yeah, this person's 160, 175,000. They can be, they're strategic, they're tactical, they can do it all. They're the, jack of all trades and the master of none. Well, just because that person can be technical doesn't mean they necessarily want to. So all of a sudden now you stretch your budget to bring in a director or senior level person for $150,000, $175,000. They come back to you and say, "Hey, I'm so busy with the strategy. We need to actually bring somebody on that's much more tactical." So not only did you, up your budget there, you now need to bring on an additional resource. So just don't chase the shiny object, I guess is my advice there. Building your team in a startup, more often than not. So if you start at the top on this list, okay, when you have a marketing leader in place, again, this is assuming you have somebody leading marketing, starting at the top, that is what I see companies bringing in-house first. Okay. Content is king, right? And yes, it is easy to get content and resources from a consulting standpoint or a contractor standpoint. But I talk to so many marketers and they say, if I give, and I ask them, if I give you $10,000 right now to spend any place that you could, what would you do? And I'm not going to say 9 out of 10. I don't have those exact numbers, but most of the time, those marketing leaders say, I'd spend $10,000 in creating as much content as I possibly can. So they bring that in-house first, then demand gen, product, events, and kind of so on. So just kind of work down the line. Creative is typically the last thing that people bring in-house. From an enterprise level, I know this is too small. I'm just trying to skim over. Again, this is just a functional org chart that I tend to see. Sometimes people roll demand gen, digital and demand gen and marketing into one. Some, more people like to separate digital and demand gen from marketing. Again, it's more of a preference. There's so many different models. This is just what I tend to see. Okay. And then let's say you have to work, right? Which I'm sure most of you do. If you're not HR on this call and you are a hiring manager, most of the people look at it and say, okay, I don't have budget to use an external recruiter. How do I work with my internal HR team? Okay. And you say it's one of the things that you want to know. And the first thing I should know, I should change my bullet points here, but the first thing you should know is you want to understand the workload and establish mutual expectations with that talent acquisition person. Okay. How many recs are they working on? How many different departments are they working on? That talent acquisition person is working on 3 sales roles, 2 finance roles, an IT position, and your 2 marketing positions. Okay. All of a sudden now, most talent acquisition and HR people are really, really good at telling the company story, right? We're a 7-year-old, 45-year-old, company. We have a great culture, this owner, we doubled sales this time. And that's great. But what marketers want to know in this market, right, with competition being so high, is they want to know what's marketing's contribution. Okay. So make sure that they understand what cool things you're doing from a marketing perspective, because that's what's going to get them really interested. Okay. And then skipping down and making sure that if you have a top candidate, this is like an old HR thing. We don't want to tell somebody, or we don't want to show somebody that we're excited. Yeah, you do. Like, I don't know who came up with that. That was probably cool 30, 40 years ago. Not the case now. Okay. If they're excited in you, or if you even think that they could be excited in you, you need to be excited in them. Okay. And then getting prompt feedback within 48 hours is, that's even a long time. The next day, right? If you interview somebody, it takes what, 5, maybe 10 minutes to connect with, the hiring manager or HR leader to make sure that candidate gets feedback right away. And then that mid level, 90 to 100K, or 4 to 10 years of experience, everybody is having such a really hard time finding that position, and that's the hardest to find. This is more of a takeaway on hiring process. This is what I recommend to companies. Like I said, this is more of a takeaway. If a company doesn't have, I work with a lot of startups, and if they don't have a clear hiring process, this is my recommendation to them. So, screenshot that. We'll send you the slides afterwards, and you can kind of take a look at that. Okay. How to avoid a bad hire? There's just a couple of tips here. Hey, if this was a science, if avoiding a bad hire was science, I would have like 6 books out already and probably own a small island somewhere in the Caribbean. But there's no science to it. There's just a couple of, nice tips that you can have. Big company versus a small company. Most people think that, if somebody comes from a big company, they'll never make it in a small company because there's, there's too much, ambiguity and it's, kind of a chaotic environment. That's true in a lot of ways, but there's also a personality difference as well, right? So don't just automatically discount somebody big versus small. If they have the personality to really fit in, definitely, take a look at that as well. The little things, this is obvious, somebody that brings a resume, somebody that sends follow-up thank you notes. Again, this isn't if they don't do that, we're immediately like kicking them out of process. But somebody that does do that, don't you think that if they take the time to do that, they're more interested in the opportunity than somebody that doesn't? Okay. This next one, I'm sure we've all had exposure to this. Can you do this? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. Can you do this? Yes. Just be careful, right? Do you have any questions? No, right? Chasing a ghost is something that, people that I find, if you spend 8 years at a company, look at a resume. Somebody's been at a company for 8 years, and then they have, 2 or 3 jumps quickly after that. I was here for, 8 months. I was here for 16 months, and then they're looking again. It's like, well, why 2 quick jumps after a really long tenured process? And they say, well, I'm really looking for what I had here. Okay. That's a tricky situation because you have to tell them, like, I get that that's what you're looking for, but you're never going to find that again. So if you're going to always compare what, your next opportunity with something that you previously had, it's just something to be cautious of because they'll never have that again. And then consultants versus quote unquote consultants, right? Some people use the consultant title when they're in between roles, which is fine, right? A lot of people pick up side work. Just make sure, hey, what companies did you work with? Bring me some examples of the work. Just to make sure that they're staying busy. And then again, not overselling, and then questions on the candidate's resume. If I hate when somebody sends me their resume and it was like, I was here from 2016 to 2018. Well, was it January of 2016 to December of 2018, where that's almost 3 years? Or was it like December 2016 to January 2018, where that was like a year, right? Like, why are you making me guess? Okay. That's a pet peeve of mine. Our resumes should answer questions, not pose questions. Okay. So the more clear that somebody's resume is, the better. Just a couple of quick takeaways. At the end of the day, hire the person, not the resume, right? That's a reason that, recruiters have positions, because you can't automate a people business, right? We're bringing in people and making sure that, they not only can do the position, right? That they not only can do the job, but they can also fit in with the culture. Okay. And then they also at the right, spot in their career, to where this is the right next step for them. Okay. And one question, again, going back to hiring the person, not the resume, is does their story make sense? Right. If somebody has, a couple of moves, right, or somebody has some time in between jobs, right, on their resume, does the story make sense? Right. And because you know what, stuff happens, right? People have situations come up to where there's layoffs at companies, or they miss on a company, or the culture's not right, so they need to go back. And you know what? I mean, there's too many times where if you're sitting there interviewing somebody and you can say, oh, hey, that makes sense. That could possibly happen to me. The story is making sense. We've already touched on the what versus the impact. Again, everybody does something. Make sure that you know the impact that they have. The other thing too is this is kind of ties into this one or the previous what versus impact, but tell candidates what they need to hear versus what they want to hear. And again, that goes into the don't oversell. If you have a very, we need you in the office 40 hours a week, and somebody's like, well, I'm really looking for some flexibility. Hey, they're a perfect skill set. They're an awesome personality. They get along with everybody. But if you tell somebody walking in day one that there could potentially be flexibility, and they think that, oh, I don't necessarily need to come in the office, or I can leave early to go get my kids, or I drop off my kids late so I can come in late. And all of a sudden now, management is asking you, why isn't, Tony in his desk 40 hours a week? And now you're having to put pressure on Tony and saying, hey, I really need you here. Tony's like, I kind of told you I needed some leeway. Okay. So just because they can do the job doesn't necessarily mean that, again, they're at the right stage in their career. Run a tight process and clear communication, right? There's really two, what are the word phrases or cliches that we have in the recruiting business. One, time is your enemy, time kills deals. The longer that you have somebody in process, the more likely they are to either get a promotion at their current job, or B, be in process with another company, and that company moves quicker than you do. Okay. And if somebody is unresponsive, no news is bad news. Hey, we'd like to schedule an interview, and they don't get back to you for 2 days. Well, they're probably really not interested in having an interview with you, because if they were interested, they'd get back to you right away. Okay. And then a couple of the key slides in the presentation here, 14, 15, 17, 18, 24. I'm going to be sending you all of these afterwards anyways. So, definitely take a look at them. But just those are a couple of key slides. A couple of other takeaways, just some resume examples. Again, I'm not a resume expert. I see a lot of them. But so these are just a couple of things to where you segment it out. This is more probably for the individual side. Again, this is the what versus the impact on the resume. My personal information, there was a couple of questions here that I just saw come up. I just saw pop up. And so I will answer those. But if you have any additional questions, feel free. I'm on LinkedIn. Feel free to connect with me. And then the very bottom link is the salary guide information. We put out a salary guide every year. So feel free to click on that link and download it. Again, you'll be getting the slides here shortly. And questions. So there was a couple of questions that I saw come up. I didn't ignore you. I saw them come through. I just wanted to, they were kind of towards the end. So I was just going to wait. And so one question is, when interviewing someone, how do you determine if their resume is a true representation of their talent level? So this really ties into the talent evaluation. Okay. And so, really so me being an individual who has used marketing automation, who has built, campaigns, demand generation campaigns, and ran through, done sales meetings and executive, meetings when we're talking about, the number of, hand raises to marketing qualified leads, to sales accepted leads, to sales qualified leads, to pipeline and ultimately revenue. I guess it's making sure that somebody who's vetting out their skill set just from a conversation standpoint is a true expert, right? For instance, my wife's a dancer, okay? And if she's talking to somebody who she has never seen dance before, but they're talking about like step rates and beats and whatever dancers talk about. I'm not a dancer, but like, even though my wife has never seen this person dance before, I guarantee you she's going to be like, oh, like Stephanie knows exactly what she's talking about, right? Because she can, I guess, talk the talk. Now, obviously, getting somebody to walk the walk, that's why if you go back to the hiring process, like right in the middle of there, I always like to have somebody do like a not a worksheet, but just kind of like a take home test problem. Again, this isn't really a pass fail thing, but I really want to understand how somebody does critical thinking, how somebody looks at critical thinking, how their brain works. Okay. So yes, definitely make sure that they're being interviewed by an expert, but at the same time too, have like a problem or like a take home test, right? That somebody can do as well. Okay. Let me second here. And then what would you say, here's a good one. So what would you say is the number one reason why top marketing talent is leaving their current company and position? This is really, I think I covered it in the retaining the talent. Because this is in such high demand, so many companies are reaching out to people and, yes, you can get more money. I don't necessarily think that money is the number one reason. I think it's being challenged. If I would say that, the biggest reason why people leave their current companies is because they either don't feel challenged, they think they're hit their ceiling, they don't know if they're going to get promoted, they don't necessarily see an impact, they're not involved in strategy sessions, right? That's a big one. Just whiteboard. Hey, have whiteboard Wednesday. Just where you can sit around and start thinking up crazy ideas. They just want to have a voice. Okay. So if you're trying to keep, your good young marketing talent engaged, or just any marketing talent in general, sit down and let everybody have a voice. And it doesn't necessarily mean that every idea is going to get implemented, right? But just allowing people to bring ideas to the table, and you never know. A couple of ideas might be really, really good. So any other, let's see. Yes. So there was just another question about the audio. Oops. There's just another question about the audio. Yes. So we will be sending out the audio as well as the slides following up to people. So if you didn't catch it all, or it was blurry or something like that, you will have access to the audio. So other than that, we're running up against time. Ran about 3 minutes over of what I was hoping for. So if anybody does have any other questions, feel free. Again, my contact information is on the slide before this. I will send that out. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn, and we'll be doing more of these. So hope everybody found it engaging, and we will definitely be in touch. Thanks again. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you.